So I'm going to turn my old jeans into jeans paper.
Okay, let's shred this up into pieces. Ooh.
This is how the paper turned out, and I'm going to turn this into a book or a photo album. I started off by covering the table with a plastic seal and also something that would absorb water.
So this is the piece of denim that I'm going to use for this project. It is a leftover piece from my patchwork and I'm not going to use it for anything else. So I'm going to scrap this into paper. Now first into pulp and then we make paper. Let's get started.
Like you probably seen in the intro, I'm going to cut these jeans up and put it into the blender. You cannot use this blender for anything else anymore. From now on, it's your paper making blender. And it's also important that you cut this into really small pieces.
Okay, let's shred this up into pieces. Ooh.
And then I blend it. It's blended a word. Anyway, then I blended this for like a minute or two until I had this pulp. And I'm going to show you how what this looks like. I really love this color and this is really pleasant to poke around in. It's like one of these weird satisfying things to do. Then I collected all of this jeans pulp into a big bin. And I went on to make some more pulp. So I cut some more jeans and then I got into an argument with my blender, but I won the argument and I was able to make more jeans paper. I also added some normal paper pulp into this. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I just had a lot of paper laying around and this seems a good way to get rid of them without throwing them away. So I ripped the paper up into pieces, put it in the blender, filled it up with water, and blended it. So my pulp mixture consists out of 50% jeans and 50% old paper. So now I'm just going to add a little bit more water to this bin. This will make the rest of this process easier. And it's always fun to make things easier.
This is the decal that I'm going to use. It's it's actually just a frame that my dad made for me and I added some chicken wire and a mesh back to it. You also need a second equal frame. And now I'm just going to put this in. Ooh. And then you pull it out and you listen to the amazing sound.
Okay, so after that little SMRA or however you call it session, you have to squeeze as much water as possible out of this. You can do this by hand. I used a sponge for this. This is an old natural sponge that I ever bought in a trip in Florida, a really nice trip. I love Florida. I hope that I can go back soon. Anyway, so you squeeze as much water out of this as possible. And then I removed the excess paper on the frame.
I'm going to remove it. Ooh, excitement! It's working. It's working. It's working. It's working. And I just put my hair in the bag of paper smush. Not smart.
Then I flip this around on a cloth of fabric. This is an old pillowcase. And I also use this moment to squeeze some extra water out of it.
This is what the wet paper looks like. So I'm going to move this to a good space for it to dry.
And now I'm going to repeat this process. I made 18 papers, so I repeated this 18 times. And the paper needs around 48 hours to dry. It depends on how you let it dry. I just lay it flat on a table near to a heater. A heater speeds up the process, but you can also dry it without a heater. It will just take longer. But mostly with me, it takes around 40 hours to dry. There are also options like window drying. So if you want to find some more options, I suggest that you use Google. And now I'm going to do something a little weird. But I'm going to iron these papers because mostly when you dry them, they come out a little bit foldy and wrinkly. So once you iron them, they are nice and flat.
So the paper has dried and it has turned into this white grayish paper with the blue dots. That will be perfect for the book. So I will show you these in close up. This is what they look like front and back, and I will zoom in as well.
Now I'm going to bind all of these papers into a book. So I laid 8 papers on each other and I set them stuck with these clothing pins. And next I marked 4 spaces, 4 holes in them. You can also do more if you prefer that. And then I took something sharp and kind of made holes through all of them. And now you simply bind this together with a piece of rope. You push the piece of rope through the hole and then you lay a knot on it. And you can make 4 or 7 holes, whatever you like. And this is actually how you finish the book. Once you turn this around, you turn it into a book. But a book also needs a cover because a lot of people judge books by covers. So I made a cover with a piece of leftover paper and you mark the sizes of your cover double so it can form a real cover and you leave over like 10 centimeters or 4 inches for the seam allowance and then I folded this with an ironer around the book and I sewn in the edges so I got a nice cover. I sewed this, but you can also use glue to finish the edges if you prefer that. I also glued a little piece of carton. You can also use a kind of harder paper in the middle where the fold of the book is supposed to be, just because I prefer this fold to be a little bit harder. I used glue to do this. This is an optional step. And now as a final step, I'm going to glue this book to the cover. I used fabric glue to do this, but you can use a normal glue as well. If you have a brush, use a brush. I couldn't find one, so I used my hand, but a brush is probably better. So I first glue to one side of the book to the cover, then I let it dry with my sewing machine on top of it for like half an hour, and then I did the rest of the book, but I realized that the little piece of carton I glued in between to it was a little bit too big. So I cut this a little smaller, re-glued it, and then I glued the whole cover to the book. And I let this dry for another 15 minutes, and then I put it on my heater for the night so it would completely dry, and this finishes the book. That was it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to turn this book into a travel scrapbook together with the friends where I made the trip with. I already made a book and I have more videos on making jeans paper and making paper from normal fabric. I will link those down below. Please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.